Happy July 4th. That was my fire pit as we move on into the blackberry bush. There were some black ones on there, but I guess the birds outsmarted me this time. Here's my mini pergola I just finished yesterday. I had the frame at the right, which has got some bird droppings on it. This is for, these are all grape vines that are coming along my fence. So I decided I'm going to try to do the vineyard thing here and drape the grapes over this thing. It's still a work in progress. It looks a little crooked from this angle. Actually, it'll look more distorted as we get further on, but it's not. And I did have grape. I think I said in an earlier video, I did notice the beginnings of grapes, but apparently the birds got wise to it. So one of the reasons I'm building these pergolas is that I'm hoping to train the grapevines over top them, and B, give me an ability to have some kind of bird netting so I can have an area where I get grapes for myself, and there'll still be plenty. You don't see from that angle, but this thing goes up the entire house. This actually makes my backyard lawn look bigger than it is, which is still, as far as I'm concerned, a lawn is too big. Those are my two on the left we just passed, were my two apple trees. And this, of course, is the new bird feeder area, which you can see I started staining the upper part of it, but it was on a day when there was a lot of birds wanting to eat, so I decided I didn't want to put the stain down there to disturb their feed and have them have to smell the stain. So I got to do that in the evening sometime. And that thing that looks like it's just kind of dangling from the top is actually intentional. I was trying to go with some little bit of an oriental motif there to top off that thing. A lot of wild growth against this other fence. It's a maple tree right there. And this pole here was where the old bird feeder was, but it was too close to my primary garden, and more so than worrying about it being too close to the garden, it was too close to the apple tree at the left. I didn't want the birds feeding them right next to that apple tree. I want to discourage them from, hanging out in there and roosting in it or doing whatever the heck they do. You can see I've got a few wildflowers starting to pop up along the fence. Those things usually don't pop up till later in July. And it's kind of messy over there. Usually by this time I will have dug out the weeds by the fence and put in some mulch around here, but with this lockdown, and of course my shadow here is kind of, well, what can you do? But anyway, I think I'll get around to doing that, to cleaning up that area as well. But this is also supposed to be more than just that. It's supposed to be a rant. And I guess I did want to make some points for those few people, the dozen or so who end up watching these things. Sometimes I only get a couple of viewers, but in time, perhaps more. The lockdown and this new idea that the case numbers have increased, though the amount of people who are sick and, of course, or unfortunately dying has greatly diminished. Actually gone way, way, way down. So the idea is there's more testing going on. I guess we're up to 25 or 30 million people by this point. Almost 10% of the population. And you're seeing increase in case numbers, but these are asymptomatic people. These are people that have no symptoms and possibly had the virus a month or so ago. This thing stays in your system longer than the 14 days they try to tell you. There's one of my squash plants. Looks like maybe I'm going to be getting a squash there where that flower has closed. Though on the other side, I've had some flowers just fall off. These are carrots that I never thinned out, but I'm just going to let them go crazy. And I've just got an extra, I had all those extra tomato plants, so I put one or two in here next to the beans, which are basically, are peas, I should say, going right there at the top of the screen. The pea plants are just about gone. And this little box, which was always the first one I plant every year, has got some radishes, beets, and a little thing of lettuce there on the end. I imagine, I'm hoping I'll get a handful of radishes and maybe a couple of beets, and I've been plucking a few leaves of lettuce off of that. Of course, this is the stinging nettle here, which we talk about every week. And you can see here I have more grape vines over top of this little archway that I put here. Yeah, some bird had a major thing go on there. But I may extend this one in either direction just a little bit, just to give it that idea where there's, instead of it just being an archway, it's more of a pergola type of thing where I can have grapes dangle in the center of it, and cover that with some kind of bird netting, and just let the rest of these things, well, I don't want these things overtaking the garden, so it's going to have to be a very strategic manicuring of and pruning of these things. One of my last year kale plants that's completely bolted, and I'm going to be ripping that out this week. And this year's kale plant, which is producing fine for me, I only ever take a couple leaves mixed in with some chard and some lettuce, and that's enough for a lettuce. And I've got here's a zucchini plant there with the open flower. But there were other flowers that appeared to have gotten pollinated, but they seem to have just dropped down. So I don't know what the story is over here. And there's one over there that's got some leaf rot on it. Looks like a grasshopper there. This little one is just not growing too well. But then again, I didn't really fertilize here or put in extra dirt because it was too late in the season and I didn't have any extra. And I guess I should have added soil to this area. So I think that's strictly what's going on there, is just spent soil and more tomatoes going into my herb area. But, I was talking to someone just before I did this, and I was mentioning like the three things about this lockdown that are bad. Number one, the idea of imprisoning people against their will, which is basically what's going on. It's imprisonment. Number two, it's the idea of where now that they're saying, oh, cases are going up, so we're going to go back to, getting away from elective surgery and certain things like that, so that you've got these people that will, when they say elective surgery, that could be, chemotherapy, it could be prostate cancer surgery, it could be, dangerous kidney stones or problems with the colon or something. These aren't as elective as, like as if, it's like plastic surgery. These are surgeries that, if not dealt with, breast cancer tests and all kinds of things like that if not dealt with over a period of 6 months, could basically give someone a death sentence. And so people are dying or having complications from not being able to have elective surgery. And then the last part is the anxiety. There's been a rise in suicides and just the general fear and anxiety that's stirring among people because they're forced to, be in lockdown, to wear these masks where they can't breathe, and practice this absurd social distancing that I've talked about so many times. It does nothing because, especially in grocery stores where you have these little dots on the floor, so you stand on that predefined dot and then you move to the next person's dot. Well, that person there, now you're in their airspace. So what good is the social distancing done? And then you're all in the same, HVAC system that's, recirculating this allegedly deadly air. I was in a supermarket this morning and there was a younger kid who was high school football age or something and was talking about, I think they're going to make us wear masks at football practice. And he was talking to some other stock clerk guy, and the guy was saying, well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all been debunked, that those masks, cut your airflow out, blah, blah, blah. I just couldn't take it anymore. I yelled at the clerk. I said, look, if, think common sense. Forget about what you see on TV. Think common sense. If you're running sprint, exercising, and you're wearing a mask, you're reducing your oxygen intake into your lungs. You're also blocking the CO2 that you're supposed to be exhaling, not to mention the bad bacteria and virus that your body's constantly exhaling, and that's getting stuck on that face mask, cloth, whatever you're wearing. So you're rebreathing in bacteria and virus that you should have been exhaling. You're not, you're rebreathing in CO2, and you're not getting a high enough oxygen. There's a nice little bumblebee. Like I said, there's been a shortage of honeybees, traditional honeybees this year, but I have some of these bumblebee types have seemed to have picked up the slack and have been pollinating. I've been getting some peppers. These are banana peppers and jalapenos in here, and I've been picking a few of these banana peppers. Like I had one today in my lunch. I made a sandwich. I bought some fresh Italian bread today, and you can see here I'm getting banana peppers coming out here, which I'm happy. This early in the season, I'm happy for that. They'll keep producing all season long. So anyway, that's it. It's the same old story. We keep talking the same thing, and they've replaced death count now, the morbid death counts, with case numbers so that they can keep this thing alive, to keep people in lockdown for whatever their political, ideological, totalitarian ends are. I don't know, but whatever it is, it defies all logic. It's not protecting people. The complications, some nice big chard leaves, and of course that's all oregano back there, which it's just, what am I going to do with it? I have no idea. I'll try drying some of it. Those are all onions. And you can see those brown leaves there. Those are the pea plants that I've harvested a bunch of stuff out of it, but it's just too hot. It's in this spot in the sun, it gets to be 90. I have a outdoor thermometer on a post above. These are my tomato plants, and it was showing 100 this morning at like 10 o'clock. Now and that could mean that the sun, though you see the shade on the pole, the thermometer is on that shaded part of the pole, so it's not as if the sun's beating on the part of the thermometer that shows the temperature. But yeah, there's a tomato, and there's a couple more tomatoes in my dirty fountain. So anyway, that's it. Check the website out. Good luck. All the best. Stay healthy. Keep the faith. Don't put up with the nonsense. Cheers.